There we go. All right, my friends. It's my pleasure to introduce Cheryl Obermiller. Am I pronouncing that last name right, Cheryl?
You are.
Okay. And Cheryl has written this great book, Fraud Points, the Small Business Owner's Guide to Outwitting Embezzlers, Thieves, and Scallywags. My kind of title, because what I always say with estate planning is you got to protect yourself from creditors and predators and in-laws and outlaws. So this goes a long way to what we talk about estate planning for financial planning. The interesting thing is, you might be a small business owner. You're like, oh, I'm not Citibank. I'm not Enron. Yeah, we're going to hear this story from Cheryl, because you are wrong if you think it's all good. So I'm just going to read you the front, whatever they call, flap of this, because it's interesting. It started on a cold, snowy morning with a single piece of mail that was certified from the IRS. Not good. Inside was a demand for unpaid payroll taxes her trusted accountant had paid. Obviously, it was an error, right? No. The stage was set for small business owner Cheryl Obermiller's world to be turned upside down and inside out. The next 24 hours became a whirlwind of upending the desk drawers of a trusted employee, making frantic phone calls to the bank and the police, and finally dealing with a sickening realization that her trusted friend and accountant was a thief. How could this have happened? Are you a small business owner? Does anyone besides you have access to your financial accounts and information? Can you guarantee that 100% of your outgoing payments are made to legitimate companies and individuals? Right. So what we're going to do, I want to share with you real quick. We want you to sign up for Cheryl's website here. And you don't have to do it right this second. You might say, Josh, I get this stuff all the time. Well, when we're going to put a link in the show notes, fraudpoints.com, for you to sign up for Cheryl's. You get your free copy of 10 ways to save your business from financial fraud. Anyway, get that, sign up for it. And we just talked beforehand that Cheryl's not going to send you an email every day. I'm just telling you right now.
No, I hate those.
Me too.
I'm busy.
So welcome, Cheryl. So just tell us who you are, where you are. Just give us a whole background of old Cheryl, if you don't mind.
Well, old Cheryl is, I
say that in a loving manner.
Yeah, it's loving. Listen, I just had my 63rd birthday last week. I have 8 children, 18 grandchildren. I'm old Cheryl, so that's okay. I am, and in fact, if people can't spell my name and they want to look for Obermiller Construction, which is actually my company, my nickname, and you can find me online, is the Pothole Queen, because I own a construction company. And I actually used to do some radio ads, and I made up my own little jingle, and I sang them all over Kansas City, and it said, I fix sidewalks and parking lots so no one falls down on your ass. Oh. So you can cut that if you need to, but
no way I've cut that. That is YouTube classic right there.
Well, which is very unusual. I grew up in a family-owned business. My family owned a grocery store, meat market. Seemed normal to me. My husband and I got married. He was an engineer, and I worked in, he had his own practice, and I worked for him. We had all these kids, and I, finally said, look, I've got no Social Security, no credit. I work through your company. And there were some things he didn't want to do as an engineer. And so I started this little company to take some of that business. And my thought was that it would pay for piano lessons and a little vacation money and all of that. And 7 years later, it was a multi-million-dollar business. And no one, I assure you, no one was more surprised about this than I was. And that's cool, right? It's everybody's dream story, right? You start with the little business, you make some good decisions, you have some good luck, and boom, you got it. Well, I was completely unprepared to handle a business. When I worked in my husband's business, the checks came in, I processed them, I did the billing, I did part of the taxes, nobody could steal anything. But then my business very, very quickly grew to a scale that I had to have help. And so again, every small business owner's dream, right? The business is big enough, I can afford a real accountant. Yeah. I do not have to sit here on Friday night at 8 o'clock at night writing the checks anymore while everybody's eating pizza and going to a movie. And that's awesome. But I didn't have any idea how to manage an accountant. And so that is a very, very dangerous step for a small business. You're giving over control, and you don't have any idea that how easy it is for people to steal from you. So, I got some office help and monitored it and went on growing and growing. Finally, company was, really doing like $3, $4, $5 million a year.
And how many employees at this stage?
At that stage, I have, because it's seasonal, I have anywhere at any given time from like 15 to 35 employees. I'm in Missouri, and so.
And you're doing your line of work is blue collar. You're putting
asphalt, concrete, pavement striping. I know the weather from a month ago is a hot topic. I want you to know it was 17 degrees here, and I have never been happier, because that kind of weather turns the asphalt and concrete back into sand and gravel. So we just put on our sweaters, sit it out, and we have work rolling in. It's a beautiful thing.
So I'm curious. The cold is worse on asphalt than the sun. I don't know if is that true?
Yes. Well,
Really?
The sun will dry the oils out, but when it gets really hot and really cold, those solid, asphalt and concrete, they contract and they expand and contract and expand. They get a crack in them. You get snow in them. It freezes and blows it apart. It destroys the pavement.
Interesting.
So it was great. We're happy. I was in Hawaii. It was super cold. I come back and I'm like, there are potholes everywhere, baby.
You're like, as green, baby. Hey, this is a complete side note. I've always wanted this. So, asphalt's black or dark, so it obviously absorbs the sun. Like in Phoenix and other places, their roads are not black asphalt. They're like a lighter. Is that just a paint, or how do they I'm just curious. Like, why do they, I know why they make it lighter, but is that? Well,
number one, the sun will bleach out the asphaltenes, which are the oils that kind of hold it together. Yeah. And number two, a huge, what your asphalt and concrete are made out of is aggregate or rock, and typically that's mined locally. If you go to Georgia, you'll see the roads are red. You know how the pavement will have that real reddish color? It's because of the sand and rock products that are used as part of the mix. Right. And now you know the rest of the story, and I know this is what everybody tuned in for.
That's interesting, though. I guaranteed very few people knew that. I did not know. That's interesting. All right, cool. So it's based on the local stuff that the rocks.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Locally sourced products. And so I hired this woman, finally got an accounting degree, just great job. And she was my right-hand man.
But how'd you know her? I mean, you had to know her.
I had talked to a friend of mine who was a CPA and said, I have got to get somebody in here. I can't just have somebody who's just a very low-level bookkeeper. There's a lot of money going through. I need a real accountant. This friend of mine, who, by the way, is horrified that she referred this woman to me, said that in her capacity as a comptroller for another company, they had just been interviewing accountants, and she had interviewed this girl and did not hire her because she thought she was so overqualified that she would be bored there, but she felt like she would be a perfect fit for me. Okay. So this woman came to me, and my friend, the CPA, came in and conducted the interview with me. And Tammy, the accountant, had excellent credentials, references. My friend, the CPA, interviewed her, asked her all the questions. It was great. I really couldn't have had a better, more thorough process for really making an effort to get the right person in that.
I'm taking notes if you're wondering what I'm doing, Cheryl. I'm not being rude. I'm just trying to take notes. So keep going. Good.
You're good. And so she came very, very, very well qualified, and she was well qualified. Now, here's where I ran into my problem by listening to the business experts, because what do they say? Do what you're passionate about. Let other people handle the minutia. Don't waste your time as the business owner doing these stupid things. You are only going to succeed if you delegate, and then you make money off of other people's time. And so, I read the books. I did what they told me to. I did not realize that no one in a business is ever too important to verify critical business functions personally, or to keep access to certain negotiable instruments, which is, checks, credit cards, things people can get money for, to keep those things under your direct control, even if you aren't the one doing everything. You need to be the person in charge of everything that's being done and have an effective way to verify that. And just to make the point, the book Fraud Points, a fraud point is an inherent weakness in your financial system where fraud can occur.
Yeah.
And so that what you have to do is identify the fraud points in your business and have systems that allow you to connect the dots. I know that this thing happened and somebody could commit fraud doing this thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
our next thing, there's a link so that I confirm that what happened here happened correctly. So it's
kind of like a joint in a pipe, you know what I'm saying? I mean, where the joints are is where the thing can just splatter and, you know, the whole thing when it freezes and all that, just kind of going back to asphalt. So you got to identify the fraud points and make sure those suckers are sealed thoroughly to make sure that. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So
things.
You hired a lady, well received, on a personal friend who's a CPA who knows what she's doing. So. Right. You're working with this lady, you know, when you interviewed her, nothing weird about that. She seemed legit. And you're like, hey, good stuff. And you're like, a couple of years go by, or tell us what happened.
Well, she worked for me for 8.5 years.
Wow. So you were like probably, I mean, I know you started making some money, but you were still probably growing the business. So you were like, look, I'm balls to the wall where I'm making the business, making sales. You know what I'm saying? And you're like, you know, Tammy, you take care of this. I'm doing that.
Just do everything. I'm working with clients. I'm working with employees. I'm making sure everything's running.
Right.
And here's the other problem with the, you know, business delegation of everything myth. I thought I was doing a good job. I mean, I met with her regularly. I reviewed her reports. I went over cash flow. Here's the critical thing. I didn't look at source documents because I'm too busy for that. I'm the owner. I'm up here. Somebody else processes the mail and puts everything together, and then you bring it to me to look at.
Right.
You don't have any idea what's gone into your financial reports. I went over those reports. They were like, she rivaled Tolkien in her ability to construct an epic fantasy. In fact, after the embezzlement and the FBI came in and was going through everything, we found that I had 3 separate versions of QuickBooks on my accounting computer, plus reports imported from a 4th version. I could stand over her shoulder and watch while she ran me a report that would tell me anything she wanted me to know.
Now, was she working at other firms or just full-time with you?
Full-time with me.
I mean, so she's obviously a very brilliant lady to do all this crap. You know what I'm saying? It's like, holy crap. She's smart as a freaking, whatever it is.
You know what the real problem is? She was really smart.
Yeah.
Anybody can do this. That's really scary. When people get into this, it is so simple to commit financial fraud and not get caught, that as we go through some of this stuff, you have people that are going to say, oh, crap.
Right.
Do that. And it happens every day.
So that
I'm going to give you a challenge. I'm going to give your listeners a challenge.
Yeah.
Go to your computer and type in embezzlement 2021.
You want me to do it right now?
If you want to, but the point is, do that, type it in. And if you do that every day, you're going to start seeing there are hundreds of cases of this every day.
Let's go to embezzlement. Now use embezzlement
2021.
All right, so I use DuckDuckGo. I don't use Google. So we use embezzlement. I don't even know if I spelled it right, but Mississippi's police chief arrested. Former Virginia Beach official who used city funds. Embezzlement. We got former Fulton Firefighters Union. Is that Fulton County, Georgia? Oh my land, I don't know. But look at Casino.
There'll be a new list.
Right here, Cheryl. Former bookkeeper sentenced to jail for embezzlement scheme. A woman has been sentenced to jail for embezzling thousands of dollars during her time as a bookkeeper for a local accountant. Man.
Now, you want to get really personal, look it up in your state or your city or your county. You will see this every single day. Every day.
That's crazy.
It's like not knowing that cigarettes are bad for you. And nobody ever thinks it'll happen to them.
That's not, I've been sitting there thinking, I gotta go to, I want to look at 2020 just because we're only 3 months in, not even 3 months in. Tennessee state senator, freight company exec, oh my, former Ramsey County employee, embezzlement fraud cases, 25 examples of embezzlement. It's nuts. Oh my goodness.
You know what? There's actually a website called Church and School Embezzlement.com. And I always say there the tagline on that should be, because guess who's really going to hell? You know, his churches get embezzled all the time by the nice ladies auxiliary or the head deacon. Booster clubs, what happens? One of the dads is the coach, one of the moms is the bookkeeper. Nobody looks at that stuff. Embezzled school booster clubs. These things are hit, and they are hit constantly.
When we lived in Virginia, the Catholic diocese in Richmond, which we were under, a lady, was stealing money from it, and she had been, just a front lady, the nice lady, front lady, you know what I'm saying, for years and years and years, and just taking money, and she didn't take that much. That's what was sad. It was like $8,000-9,000, and it's just like you're thinking, man, you could. It's like something happened where they just couldn't resist. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy.
Well, there's something called the fraud triangle. And this is Joseph T. Wells, who's kind of the father of modern fraud theory, came up with something called the fraud triangle. And
there's actually something called modern fraud theory. That's how deep this is. That's crazy.
It's huge.
Yeah, keep going.
So here's the fraud triangle. There are 3 points, 3 things that have to occur for a long-term fraud to continue. The first is opportunity. Is there an easy way to get money out of your business that you're probably not going to get caught? And the answer is, for everybody listening, yeah, there is. I promise. You look, and there is. I'm just going to tell you the answer is yes. Right. The second point is, it used to be, and then we'll talk about this, second point was pressure, because it would be like someone's husband lost their job, so they didn't have any insurance. Their kid had cancer. They were going to lose their home. So mom, who's still employed, is stealing money. It's wrong, but you get it that this person was in a horrible position. So at least you can get your head around it. It's not called pressure anymore. It's called motivation, because when people steal your money, they get hair plugs and buy racehorses. And so it's just mostly greed now. The third point in the fraud triangle is justification. So for somebody to have the opportunity to do it and some kind of pressure or motivation, they've also, so they don't feel like a terrible person, they concoct some kind of a story. They work harder than you do. You don't pay them enough. They really need the money. You have so much money, you don't miss it anyway. They've been stealing it for months. You don't even know it's gone, so you don't need it. There's some kind of justification. So this is always in play when you have a long-term embezzlement. But the big thing to me, because when I started reading his book from some years ago, he wrote a big textbook about it. And I realized that when he talked about this pressure component of the fraud triangle, that did not jive with the embezzlement cases I was reading about, where people have gambling addictions, drug addiction, substance abuse is a huge thing, or they're just greedy. They just want you. So
what was the impetus, if you have to if you look back and say, that's what allowed Tammy, she obviously had the opportunity and she had but what was the impetus where she started, any idea like why she started doing it? Because she could, but you still got to be like a moral breakdown someplace. So look, we're all guilty. I'm telling you right now.
So I think maybe it had something to do with that. But here's the problem.
What'd you say she did? What you said?
Changed jobs relatively often. So I think there were some financial problems there. But the reason why I don't care what your motivation is it just doesn't matter. Maybe your motivation is you come from a poor family and kids made fun of you all through school for how you dressed, and now you are not going to let your kid do that, and you steal money so you can buy all your kids' clothes at Nordstrom. How do I know that? And the fact is, it doesn't matter. What matters is that I have systems that make it really hard for you to steal, make it really easy for me to catch, and that I will prosecute you if I catch you doing it. So the motivation is, it's almost irrelevant. It's like knowing that factually, women are many more times likely to be embezzlers than men are. Women, and I think it's between ages of like 26 and 39. When men steal, they not nearly as many steal, but they steal a lot more money. I guess you guys are gutsier because they'll like go for super big bucks. The women steal less. But here's the problem. It shouldn't have any effect on your financial controls, because if you say you advertise for, you want to hire an accountant, and you have a nice 29-year-old lady come in and apply, and you say, well, we have a policy that we do not hire women between 26 and 39 because statistically you're so much more likely to be embezzlers, then you let me know how your interview with the EEOC goes, and because her nice lawyer is going to call you. It's irrelevant. Right. It's like academic stuff that it's kind of interesting to read later, maybe why somebody did it. But as a business owner looking at your fraud risk, it shouldn't make any difference to you at all.
That's great. So that's interesting. That would lead me to believe that maybe women just have more inclination for shopping, right? And so as such, they just like the kind of the smaller, finer things, whereas men just want that big fancy car to drive around and say, look at me. But I don't know. All right, so
women buy some pretty big ticket items. The pattern seems to be that women will take smaller amounts of money over longer periods of time. My embezzler, here will freak you out. She started working for me in August of 2001. I caught her. The embezzlement was discovered January 7th of 2010.
Whoa.
She forged her first check in December of 2001, less than 4 months after she went to work for me, and she embezzled for 8 years.
So, I mean, and you had no clue at all, nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like the bottom line, the P&L statement, everything. Look, because she can show you whatever the hell she wants to show you, but you had no clue.
But they know how much they can take, usually without like completely overwhelming you. They can give you all sorts of backup information about why you're not making money. Again, I know it sounds, and that's why people like me don't come out and talk about it, because essentially you have to admit, I was really dumb about this, man.
But not just you, Cheryl. I mean, we just went through the list of everybody's out there embezzling like crazy. It's like it's huge out there. It's nuts.
When Steve Jobs came back, when he was at Apple, he made a comment. What did he say? He said, I'm the only person I know who has lost $500 million in a single year. And it's a very humbling experience. So I didn't lose that much, but you simply discount the amount of trust you place in a person and how they can do things that seem perfectly normal and cover things up. And when that person can completely construct your profit and loss statements, your financial statements, you just don't understand the amount of control they have over what you perceive. And, you and I were talking about this before. You have to have balance. You can't say no one from the outside world can contact me directly because I'm the business owner and I'm important. Nevertheless, you have to have some limits, or all you would do is talk to insurance salesmen. Right. And, I don't hate insurance salesmen. They just call me a lot. And so you have to have a degree of separation, but what you really have to do, and every business owner needs to do, you need to sit down and realistically think like a thief. How could somebody get money out of my business? How could somebody use this check to get money out of my business? Well, let me ask your business owners, what is the last check that you issued out of your stack of checks? What is the check number? Are those checks locked up where they are under your control? And did you look at the bank account yesterday to see if that check cleared the bank in the right amount and to the right person? And if the answer to any of those is no, then you have a major fraud point.
You have a fraud point. Exactly. That's the fraud point. But I mean, that is the fraud point where the pipes can burst. All right. So 8 years go by, you're building your business, you're making money, building a business. Then all of a sudden one day my wife got a letter from the IRS. Yes. I was like, and that's just because she, I can't remember. It was nothing. It's just a validate. We use our financial stuff for student loans. And anytime we get that letter from the IRS, you're like, no, it's not good.
It's a terrible thing.
Now, why did you get that letter and not Tammy? Did she normally get in front of that, or?
Well, here's what happened. And I will tell you, I know, because you talk about, you're a church guy, I'm a church lady. I feel like the Lord stepped in and said, I'm going to help you out here, Cheryl, because like this series of events, the way that it was caught, I was within 2 weeks or so of having my business seized by the IRS. This was like big crap trouble time. And here's what happened. In the morning that I caught the embezzlement, her husband had to leave for work at like 4 a.m. He left. It was in early January. A huge windstorm came up after he left, filled their and did such a huge drift of snow in front of her garage door that she couldn't get out of the driveway. And it's January construction, things are pretty slow. So just don't worry about it. We'll take care of things tomorrow. So Tammy normally got the mail. Well, that day the mail comes, there's a certified letter from the IRS. And she handled that stuff. And so I almost didn't even open it. And then I thought, nah, it's certified. It's probably not just a normal letter. So I opened the letter up, and the letter says, since you owe us like $50,000 in 941 payroll taxes that you have completely ignored, and you have ignored every one of our communications about it for the last 7 months, we are now going to place a lien on your business accounts and seize all your stuff. Have a nice day. And I said, like, what the heck is this? And so I called Tammy at home, and I said, what's the deal with this? Our taxes are paid. I see the taxes are paid. And, because what do I know? How do I confirm my taxes are paid? Why do I know that, Josh? What's the answer? At this point, how does Cheryl know her taxes are paid?
By Tammy.
Because the accountant said they were.
Exactly.
Right? So I called her and she said, they've screwed up things before. Just put it aside and I'll deal with it when I get in tomorrow. And I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and call them because this sounds pretty serious. So I'll let you know what I find out. And she kept trying to talk me out of it because I was too busy and it was a waste of my time. I said, well, look, I'll just let you know what I find out. So I call the hotline number on the IRS, and I get this very nice lady on the phone. And she said, she's going through all my payments and stuff. And she said, well, here's the deal. All of your taxes for the first quarter of 2009 are paid. Everything's filed. There's no problem. Second quarter of 2009, you went like 6 weeks in and then just stopped making payments and did not file a second quarter tax return. And third quarter, there was no payment or tax return of any kind received. And then fourth quarter, everything just started again like nothing was wrong. And I said, and I just explained to the lady, I said, there's something wrong here. We've always paid our taxes. My accountant snowed in. She assures me that everything is paid, no problem. And the woman said, I can see you never make late payments. Obviously, there's some kind of an error. Maybe it's been posted to somebody else's taxpayer ID account. We don't know what the problem is. But she said, I'm going to put all this on hold for 30 days. Nothing will happen. Get your accountant in, look things up, get the confirmation numbers, call me back, and we'll just get it all taken care of. So I'm like, all right, that's cool. So I called Tammy back.
Right.
And this woman, now listen, I want you to know, I could sit at my desk looking at a bid, and I could yell across the building at Tammy and say, hey, Tammy, how much did we pay per cubic yard of concrete in Chadron, Nebraska when we were there 3 years ago? Boom, off the top of her head, she can tell me what we paid. So when I said, so here's what the lady says about the taxes, and what I hear is, well, I think everything's okay. Maybe I made maybe one payment late, but nothing else. And I don't know what they're talking. And she's just all over herself. And I finally said, okay, well, we'll talk about this tomorrow. And I got off the phone and I thought, that's weird. Remember, I've worked with this lady for 8.5 years. I know her really, really well. This was totally abnormal behavior for her. So I went in and got into my accounting system. Now, at the time, I had a very high-end specialized system for contractors and architects, far too complicated for me to use. Don't do that. You can get very, very, very user-friendly systems as a business owner that will handle even pretty large companies that you can use. Don't get bought into a
Another
system.
fraud point right there.
Right.
Another...
Absolutely. Know how to use your accounting system.
Yeah.
But don't let yourself get sold into a system that only your CPA understands, because then you can't go in and check things. But I did manage to get in, and it took me a while. I finally got into the tax payments, and I just sat there. Every payment that the lady at the IRS said was missing was absent from my system. And I thought, well, I thought a bad word. I don't say that. I thought, well, crap. I hang out with construction workers all the time. You have to excuse me. I'm a little rougher on the edges sometimes.
And you got 8 kids.
And I did. And if that doesn't make you swear, I don't know what will. So, but I thought,
so what you're saying is you're not a snowflake. You know what I'm saying?
No. I've hung around with men so long, I don't know how to be a girl anymore. I'm just lucky. You know what? This is actually my second business. The first company I owned was a modeling agency. So I brought a little bit of that with me. So I do still fix my hair and wear my makeup. And then we go out and
then you start cussing like a drunken infantryman. I love it. All right, right on.
It's not that bad, but anyway, so I was completely bowled over. I didn't even know what to do. So I start searching her desk. And in fact, the name of the book before Fraud Points, my first working title was My Accountant's Drawers, because I thought it was kind of funny and it was like a double entendre and all that. But then nobody would have, people would think it was porn or something. So it was Fraud Points instead. But it's because the way I really found that I was actually like, man, this is it, was by going through my accountant's drawers. None of us do that because it's like their private space, right? Nah, nothing in the business is private. It's all mine. You got no expectation of privacy. If you go to the bathroom, I won't walk in.
No way.
It's mine. Well, but you know, it feels rude. It feels rude. We don't want to go.
I get it, but it's your business. I mean, it's not private if it's your business. You know what I'm saying?
And now, all you business owners listening, how many of you would be totally comfortable walking in and simply searching through your employees' desk drawers, just kind of see what's in there? Because nobody is. It doesn't feel comfortable. Right. But so I started searching the drawers, and I found all sorts of things. I found blank checks in there that she hadn't managed to forge yet. I found
and she left all this in basically out in the open in her quote private place inside the business, not even at home.
Well, the real killer was at the very back of one of her desk drawers. I pulled out a green folder, and in that folder, date stamped and with the envelopes stapled to them, was every single letter from the IRS. Every single one. Because ultimately, when it all hit the fan, whose fault was it that the taxes weren't paid? Well, it was mine. And so she's like got all this documentation. Look, I kept telling her the taxes needed to be paid, and she just wouldn't do it. So that's why all that documentation was saved. I pulled out that folder and looked at that, and
she was going to set you up. She was going to set you up.
Oh, it was very, very bad. It was very bad. And do you know why? She was not convicted of this, but this was what I thought, and it's what the FBI agent thought. And I do want to go on record as telling you that I had my own personal FBI agent, Agent Jackson, Men in Black fans. I really do have my own Agent J on my speed dial. And despite the fact that he was awesome, the number one item on my bucket list is to never again need my own personal FBI agent. So once I saw all of this, I immediately, because I have my banker's cell phone number. At this point, I've called my husband and said, you got to get up here and look at some stuff. I don't know what's going on. I called, and he got up and I said, I need to call the bank and freeze my bank accounts. And he said, have you seen anything going on in the bank accounts yet? And I said, no, but thank you, Lord. I said, but Roy, I genuinely have this overwhelming feeling. I need to stop all activity on my bank accounts.
Was this the same day?
Yeah, all same day. And so I called.
Cheryl, when the IRS took control of the business, 2 weeks from now, you had like 2 weeks.
I was going to lose everything. And like most small business owners, you know what we do when we have business loans? We have to personally guarantee those loans. And so something like over 20% of small business owners whose businesses are embezzled will be personally bankrupted because their personal assets guarantee the business. And this is really important. 941 payroll taxes are called trust fund taxes. It's money that I take out of your paycheck.
Right, exactly.
It passes through my hands and I give it to the IRS. It's not your money. It's not my money. It's their money. And I want you to know they get extremely testy when anything interferes with that process. You think you have a corporation and you have this corporate veil and it protects you. 941 payroll taxes, because they're trust fund taxes, are the one tax that can never be discharged by bankruptcy, and that the IRS can blow straight through your corporate veil and seize your home and your personal assets to satisfy. Your corporate veil will not protect you if your payroll taxes are not paid. So I was not only in danger of losing my business, I would have lost my home.
So if they can get your home, they can get retirement accounts too, obviously.
I don't know. I don't know if they can take that.
But they could
theoretically
get your personal home. They could literally they could put a lien on your home and say, hey, until
your personal assets are security for trust fund taxes, whether you have a corporate veil or not. So this was like really, really seriously scary. So I called my banker because I had his cell phone number.
Right.
I called him at 6:30 in the evening and I said, hey, Barry, how you doing? Like, I'm just seeing some stuff here I'm not sure about. So could you please totally freeze my bank accounts and not let anything pass through until you talk to me? Have a nice evening. And they're like, that freaks them out, by the way, but they'll do it. So the next morning, then what we did, I called, two of my sons worked here, and I called them and I said, if Tammy comes in here early in the morning, here's what's going on. She cannot be led back to her office. Nothing can happen. We unplugged her computer so she couldn't do any kind of remote into it. And I said, I will be there before 8. She's normally there at 8. Well, the boys call me at 7:30 when we're on our way, and my husband's coming in with me. We're on our way to the office, and they said, Tammy's here, and her computer's still unplugged, and we haven't let her back to the office. She's sitting in the entry foyer. And so I said, you just hold her there. And I'm literally 5-10 minutes away.
And she normally doesn't get in that early, Tammy.
No, oh no, she was kind of CYA, baby. And so the very next phone call, I got a phone call as soon as I hung up from my banker, who said, well, we had 2 checks come in last night. One was, I think it was utility check, totally just normal check. I said, okay, that's fine. So the second check is one you wrote to Tammy on Tuesday. And I said, I wasn't in the office on Tuesday. One of my kids was really sick. I was out all day. And he said, well, I mean, there's a check here to Tammy. It's signed. You wrote it. I said, I'm telling you, I wasn't there. He said, well, he said, sure, it's Tuesday. And it's not a paycheck. He said, no. I said, how much is it for? Yeah. And he said, $3,270. And I said, I did not write this check. I did not write this check. And he said, I'm freezing your account. Let me know when you get in, and we'll start pulling things. So I get in. Tammy at this point is crying. I love my job. I'm so sorry. I was like, why? What? And she has no idea at this point that I had a phone call in the last few minutes about the check. She only knows that I know about the taxes.
Right.
She's going to always, I said, how could you not pay the taxes? There's money in the bank. I see in the records, the things you give me, that the taxes are paid. We had the money to pay them. Why are the taxes not paid? And, I made a mistake. And so sorry, I love my job. Please let me help us clean this up. And I said, look, you have to go home until I know what's going on. So I will call you and let you know that I cannot let you do anything here until I know what's going on. So I sent her home, and I didn't tip her off that I knew about the forged check. And so then the banker calls back and says, and she's pulled checks for like the last 30 days. There's thousands of dollars worth of checks. There's only like 3 or 4 checks, but there's like $10,000. And
all payable to Tammy?
Oh yeah, she just wrote them out in her own name by hand, wrote her signature, signed my name on them.
And was doing that for months on end?
She'd been doing it for 8 years. And this is what happens when someone can access your check stock, put whatever they want in your accounting system. They balance the checkbook and they bring you the reports, and the reports are beautiful and all of them balance, because you can make them balance. When you're making them up, it's easy to get them to balance. People have no idea the control that someone has. We think we're being efficient. I look at the reports.
How much did she end up getting from you?
Her conviction was for just under $500,000 in 4 years.
What?
The FBI went back only 4 years because of statutory limitations. Actual damage to the business likely exceeded $1 million.
So
I lost $1 million.
So you lost it. She gained it in her private account. Like
when you calculate loss, a lot of what she was actually convicted of was theft, ways that she got money out.
Right.
But not only did she get a lot more money out, at some point you have to just say, how much money did we lose? Because, and as a business owner, again, I want you to think about what an embezzler does, because it touches every aspect of your business. What did it do to my bidding processes? Construction is a very competitive bid. Hold on, I'm sorry, my computer's not, it's going dead. Let me make sure. I thought I'd plugged it in. So what happens when your overhead numbers are all completely skewed? How do you bid effectively? You don't. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure, because I think that for some reason I'm getting a low battery and everything should be plugged in.
I'm gonna stop for just a second. All right, cool. So basically, when your bottom line was affected as such, that meant your ability to create business was affected because you couldn't bid competitively enough potentially.
Sure. If your overhead figure, what you think it costs to run your business is really skewed. Let me kind of get back where I was. If your overhead number is really skewed, you can't bid effectively. You think it's costing you more to run your business than it really is, because that overhead figure now covers money that's being stolen from the company. And so how many jobs did I lose? How many jobs were we not able to perform effectively on because I couldn't buy new equipment? You can't believe what construction workers do to equipment. You have to fix or buy new stuff all the time. And, just the losses were just, you start looking at how many areas of your company financial fraud affects, and it's just extraordinary. So So I lost, estimates probably $1 million. And here's the kicker. Again, you think there are two things I want people to realize. One is you say, my company doesn't have $1 million. Well, mine didn't either. It was over time. But so you kid yourself into thinking that your little business is not a target for an embezzler, because you don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars for them to steal. So my question is, how much do you have? Because that's what they'll take. And if you have a little mom and pop business that between the two of you profits you guys 35 grand a year, and you work all the time, and man, you make your house payment off of that, a $5,000 loss, you're done.
Yeah, 100%.
So it doesn't matter. If my decimal points are bigger, it doesn't make any difference, because what will be an annoyance to IBM is a real problem for me, and it's just overwhelming for a small.
Well, it's the triangle. I mean, that's the opportunity. So the opportunity might not be 500,000, it might be 50,000 bucks or 5,000 bucks. If the opportunity is there and the fraud point isn't sealed correctly, 5,000 bucks to a lady who's got a $750 a month rent is a lot of money. If 5,000 bucks, I mean, it's just 50,000 bucks. It's respective. That's all there is to it.
And the other thing I want people to really stop and think about is the methods she used. And this is normal. I'm the total norm. When the FBI agent came in and I said, I've never even heard of this happening to anybody. This is humiliating. I can't believe how stupid I was to let this stuff happen. He said, you're a classic embezzlement case. I'll see like 3 more of these today. I see these constantly. You are the norm. And he said, and I'm going to tell you something. We're going to look in like this place and this place and at this function. And I bet we're going to find some of this stuff too. Found all of it. I am the classic case. You know why you don't know there are people like me? Because we're too freaking embarrassed to come out and say, somebody was sitting right under my nose forging my checks. And I didn't look. And I told a friend of mine this when I was just very, very traumatized. And as a construction babe, I'm kind of a battle axe. I don't get emotionally traumatized terribly easy. I was a basket case. It was just awful. Yeah. But I told my friend, I said, I feel so wretchedly stupid. And she said, you're not stupid, you're honest. Right. And because you would never do this to someone yourself, you didn't expect anyone to do it to you. And so, but I'm just going to tell you, you can love and trust your employees, but you have to have financial controls in your business. Because let me tell you the main one. Let me just real quickly. Yeah. Here's how people get money out of your business. Number one, they forge checks. Number two, they misuse your credit cards. Number three, they figure out ways to electronically pay stuff out of your bank account. Number four, they add ghost employees. You don't think your business is haunted? You may be paying people who don't work there. It's one of the most common fraud schemes. And because they get the mail, they steal things out of the mail that they can convert. They steal checks. Let's say you own a lawn service company and you get 57 checks a week for $85.
Right.
3 or 4 of those go missing a week. Are you going to notice that? Especially if in the books it looks like they're paid and you aren't connecting that point between what comes in and what hits your books. Here's why you have to have, this is why you have to have the fraud point controls in there. After all of this happened, I started looking at how do I manage this? Yeah. What the heck do I do? Because I'm sitting down with the FBI agent and he's asking who answered the phones, who mailed the checks, who reconciled the bank statements. And when he said, who got the mail, I started to cry because I said, I can't even hire someone to get the mail. I can't run this business alone. If I have to do personally every financial process, I have to get the mail. And I said, why can't I let an accountant get the mail? And he looked at me and he put his little glasses down in his nose and he said, because then they can steal the money you intended for payroll taxes and then remove the notices from the IRS out of the mail. And I thought a bad word again. I thought, oh crap, now what do I do? So, but what you have to consider is that you're the lawn keeper guy, you send out a bill to a company, they owe you $500. You see that on your payables report or your receivables. You know that you're going to get that money. But the money comes in, your accountant gets the money and either marks the account then as paid or writes it off as a bad debt, which they can do. So you see it's removed. You're not checking to make sure the money actually hit the bank. Exactly. And here's the creepy part. Embezzler now has a check for $500. And do you know what she can do with that? She can white your name out and write her name on it and put it in her bank account because we do all of this electronically now. She will take that and put it into an ATM and no human eyeball is ever going to look at that check unless
all on your phone. Exactly. Yeah.
Unless you detect a problem. What's kind of creepy is when I went into business, and I've been in business 28 years, I banked at a little local bank, knew the ladies down there. My checks would come in for payment. They checked every signature against a signature card. Okay. In fact, on 2 different occasions, the nice lady at the bank called me and said, I have a check here and this signature does not appear to be yours. Well, I said, I was out of the office. Somebody came in, they had to be paid. I told Roy to sign the check. So if it's for this amount, this person, it's okay. And they passed it through. Somebody looked at every single check. Yeah. Nobody told business owners with all the electronic banking, hey, baby, it's all your eyes now, because nobody else is going to look at this. The only person confirming that your checks actually got to the right person and were endorsed is you. And you could put, I was actually going to do an experiment because I have had checks go through. I had a check get stuck once in a pile of checks and it didn't get signed. And the bank gave the lady $850 for it anyway, even unsigned. And Tammy, if you look at her signature, in fact, I think it's on my website, you look at her signature and compare it to my signature, there's no resemblance at all. Mickey Mouse could sign your checks. And
it's kind of like the voting stuff that we have nowadays, if you know what I'm saying.
And, fraud is a problem. So you got to look at stuff. But I told a friend, I said, I'm going to try like seeing what I can do to checks that, and the bank will still honor them, like sign Minnie Mouse on the check line. And I thought it was a cool idea. And she said, technically that's bank fraud and you might not want to do that. So I didn't ever do my experiment because I didn't want to go to jail. But my experience tells me that a bank will process a check for nearly anything, particularly if it's deposited through an ATM or a camera, something electronically. The person who has to verify that is you.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say, the bank doesn't care, and no one cares unless you say something. Yeah. I find it interesting that the FBI agent and the IRS, this isn't their first rodeo, if you know what I'm saying. They've been through this so many times, they know exactly what to identify, which is pretty interesting. It's kind of scary, frankly, how many times they've gone through the same story. I still can't. I cannot get over the idea that if there was not a snowstorm and where she could not get out of her garage, you could be. I mean,
I've been shut down. It was
maybe even.
It was not by accident. That's the norm. If people catch these things, it's typically some kind of an accident. Did you know that a full charge audit of your company books has between a 3 and 8% chance of discovering this kind of embezzlement?
Well, so on the real quick with the would you so you didn't pay Social Security tax, right? That's what it is. You didn't pay the payroll. So did they say you have to pay it now? I mean, like,
I almost lost my home over that. They placed tax liens against my business. We should probably do a very long, I'll give you like a 30-second rundown. We should do a whole show on what the IRS can do to your business. And people will need to bring like hard liquor and be prepared to be very depressed and frightened, because I was ravaged by the IRS. They violated my rights. My tax case, after 3 years of fighting incredible abuse from the IRS, was finally resolved in Washington, D.C. between the head of the Taxpayer Advocate's Office and the Director of Collections for the IRS, and was reported on to Congress without my name being used, because the IRS abuses were so extraordinary. I said, and I told the lady when she came in and violated numerous rights, let me just tell everybody, because this is important. If someone from the IRS comes into your office, you have the absolute right to have a financial or legal professional with you when you talk to them. Number one, do not ever be afraid to say, I will be happy to give you any information that you want. However, I want to exercise my right to have a professional with me to represent my best interests. And they have to do that, because you know what my lady did? She came in, grilled me, yelled at me for 3 hours, left me saying, I'm just putting tax liens on this business. And then on her way out the door, do you know what she gave me? My copy of the Taxpayers Bill of Rights, stating you do not have to talk to me unless you have a professional with you, and you have the right. I am required to stop and set an appointment with you when you can have a representative with you. She gave me that on her way out the door. So just for starters, that's how my lovely 3-year relationship with the IRS began. And I want to tell you that they placed tax liens against my business. My bank was well within its legal rights to have all my loans, to call on all my loans. I had a tax lien. And people, if you have to ask for credit, either to buy equipment or just like me, I work all over the Midwest. I go to a little town in Podunk, Kansas, and fill out a credit app. So they'll sell me $10,000 in concrete. They see I have a federal tax lien. They don't like that. It's a huge problem, and many businesses are destroyed who would have survived the embezzlement, but they cannot survive the effects of the federal tax lien. And in order, my former Missouri governor and at that time U.S. Senator Kit Bond, I finally called his office. He immediately stopped the collection action, had me assigned a top-level taxpayer advocate. If he had not done that, I would not be here today. My business would have been destroyed. And Senator Bond knows that, and I appreciate that very much. I've visited with him personally about it. But they had to accept a payment plan from me. And even with that payment plan, I still had tax liens in place. And so after all I've been through, like I'm trying not to lose everything, even then, in order to have a payment agreement with the IRS, I had to fill out a form listing everything personally I owned, including called out specifically the value of things like my living room furniture, my wedding rings, and personal jewelry. I cannot tell you, I cannot begin to emphasize, and while we're like having fun here, this is my crybaby moment. I cannot tell you what it did to me personally or emotionally to be facing all of these other things. Know that the money, I thought the money was paid. I didn't take it. The woman who stole the money was going to prison. And in order to keep the IRS from seizing my business, I had to list on paper the value of my wedding rings and my living room furniture. I mean,
don't forget, you still have a business to run. I mean, that's the thing. That's still where.
And try running a business that has been impacted by this, right, and spending at least 50% of all working hours dealing with an embezzlement and doing it for several years.
I have a friend who's a CPA. I mean, she's a very good CPA financial planner. She got audited, and she's clean as wind driven snow. Didn't matter. The audit was, but she goes, it was like they were. I mean, it was, and she goes, I can't believe this. I know what I'm doing. And she does, there's no, and she goes, the audit was just brutal, she said. And she's not running a business. She's just a W-2 employee. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. All right. So let's wind this down for today, because I would definitely like to revisit this again. So Tammy is in prison, or she went to prison, or is there any restitution for you, or how does that work?
Tammy went to prison for her sentence, and the federally recommended sentence for stealing under $500,000 is 33 months. Get your head around that. If I went into a convenience store with a banana in my pocket and got the kid to give me $50, I'd be looking at 10 years. But you embezzle. In fact, it doesn't even hit 48 months as a recommended sentence until you exceed $1 million in proven losses.
So if
it's a joke.
Armed robbery with a pretend firearm, that
you could go away to life for that. I mean, they put you away for a very long time. But if you sit behind a desk and you destroy a business and the income of how many employees,
exactly,
then it's considered a victimless crime because there's no violence. And while I'm glad nobody used a gun, it still was a devastating amount of money. So so with the way a federal sentence works, she was given the maximum recommended federal sentence, which was 33 months. With a federal sentence, there is no parole or probation, but they automatically knock 10% off of your sentence. As long as you don't cause any trouble, you automatically get a 10% discount on your term. So she spent 2.5 years. She spent 30 months in the federal penitentiary. But in like a place where accountants go,
exactly, right,
like Leavenworth or anything. And I have a restitution order, and I get anywhere from $350 to $490 a month. So we'll go to lunch sometime. I'll buy. Hope you don't want to go anyplace expensive. And the reality is, I'm one of the lucky ones. My business survived. My marriage survived. My business is thriving. The restitution, I mean, fine, it's nice. But the reality is, and this is one of the things people always ask me, it's like, but you get that money back, right? And I'm like, from who? The embezzlement?
That's what I'm saying. Who's going to, where? I mean, the IRS?
No one gives the money back. The money is gone. She will never, this is a debt that she can never repay. And I'm really kind of trying to decide how I want to handle that, because there's a point at which I just want to say, like, it's done. I don't need the money. I don't know quite how to resolve that. You have to abandon a judgment if you don't want to receive restitution.
But you got to get the restitution just so she always remember. I mean, she might have paid her debt to society, but she hasn't paid her debt to you, in my opinion. I mean, but
I get that. I've talked with that about it with family members, and there's a lot of discussion about it. But the reality is that it would have been so easy for me to prevent this embezzlement. And what I'll tell you, a couple things I want people really to take away from this. You can buy my book. We can do some webinar things together. It'd be awesome. There's a lot to learn. But 3 basic things that every one of your business owners should be doing every day. Get your own mail.
Yeah.
You do that today. Get your own mail. Every piece of mail you look at, I want you to open it and say, what could somebody do with this? Oh, it's a check made out to me. Somebody could forge this. It's a credit card statement. What can they do with that? Oh, look at the back page for the convenience checks. They can pay
Or
for
it's an IRS thing that says we've been contacting you and you haven't called us back.
Right.
I just
They
can't get over the freaking
cases.
storm. If you didn't have the storm, we would not be having this discussion. I
Right.
just, it's divine intervention. I mean, it's amazing.
Great. So you get your own mail always. Nobody touches your mail until you touch your mail first. And I want people to listen to this for the next week. Every piece of mail that you open, I want you to say, what could a thief in my business do with this? And at the end of that week, you will never let anyone touch your mail again unless you have gone through it first, because suddenly you start realizing the devastating things people can do. Second thing is you lock up your checks and credit cards. And I always joke with people and say, you know, before I got embezzled, I kept my checks in the desk drawer and my guns in the gun safe. But now that I've lost $1 million, I keep my checks in the gun safe and my guns in the desk drawer. And I feel so much happier. And you think I'm kidding, Josh? I'm going to move my computer. Do you see what's behind me in that corner? Do you see that great big gun safe, that green safe in the corner? Do you know what's in there?
Checks.
My credit cards, my corporate seal, my corporate, my incorporation documents. That stuff's in the safe. It's not floating around the office anymore. I got it. And the third thing that you do is you check your online bank account every single day. Nobody can touch that. And if you see that the last check that you got out of your safe, because now you got one, right? The last check you got out was number 3,500. And then you log on to your bank account and you see that the check that cleared the bank today is 8,374 or 1,200.
Something has gone wrong.
You got a problem. And keep in mind, how hard is it for somebody who has your routing number, your account number, your social security number, your tax federal ID? How hard is it for that person to buy checks in your company name and just start issuing ones that they want? It's
how about those credit card offers they get? I mean, so you got one for, you know, Obermiller construction. I mean, could Tammy, or just, I'm using her for my proxy here. Sorry about Pablo, but could
well, I shred them. So anything like that.
I'm just saying you didn't do it. Just say Tammy was still getting the mail. Could she easily, I don't know, make it so it was,
absolutely. All you do, if you've ever seen the credit card checks, you just say, awesome, I want to write this check out for a cash withdrawal or to pay off my car or any number of things. And then you sign it and issue it to a vendor or a store, just like you would a personal check. And then that money just goes on your credit card account. And if you're not monitoring some of those things, and I do want to say it's really easy for business owners to be totally overwhelmed. Like, how do I look at everything? That's why I wrote the book, because I knew I had to have like a really simple, super time effective process that allowed me to move through and check those things, or I just wouldn't do it. And plus it just leaves holes in things. If you
also mentioned too, Cheryl, just about the complexity of the software. This is why I say in financial planning, complexity is not beneficial for financial retirement planning. Keep it simple, stupid. I'm not saying business has to be like just a basic Excel spreadsheet, but if you as a business owner who are ultimately responsible can't figure out the friggin' financing software, that's on you. There's no other way around that.
And trying to unravel the embezzlement, because this program was kind of an obscure program. Nobody knew about it, made it very difficult to get accountants to come in and help me. And I will tell you, and I don't get anything from these people. I pay them a lot of money to use their system. Use QuickBooks. It's easy. I understand it. It's very user friendly. If my secretary, my bookkeeper now would get hit by a truck, not only could I do everything in the system, I can make a single phone call, and I live in a small town, have a CPA here in an hour who's conversant in everything in QuickBooks, and I can manage it. So
that's good stuff. All right. So again, we can find fraudpoints in the plural.com.
Fraudpoints.com.
I'll put links in the show notes. Get on, you can sign up, you can get on Cheryl's email list, and I tell her she won't send you
I will not send you things every day.
But that will give you the like a PDF of the 10 fraud points to make sure that with some of which we talk about here.
Just gives you like top 10 reasons why we're such easy targets.
And I would actually even go in further and say, look, you think this only happened to Cheryl? Maybe think, oh, well, Cheryl, blah, blah, blah. Just look at embezzlement 2021, just like she said. It's nuts. I mean, I'm shocked. I was like, holy crap, county sheriffs? I mean, if the list goes on, and I can only imagine how much the DOD, the Department of Defense, is being embezzled. I can only, it's just,
It's crazy.
it's just,
It's everywhere.
and it doesn't, you know, the funny thing is, I'll say real quick, and I'll get you out of here, but, you know, like if you run a restaurant, everyone knows those are getting embezzled, you know, 20 bucks here, 20 bucks there. It doesn't matter the line of work you're in, man. The one we just saw when you said to look up embezzlement 2021 was a bookkeeper at an accounting firm was embezzling. A bookkeeper at an accounting firm.
It's everywhere.
All right, Cheryl, I appreciate it. We'll let you get back to being the pothole queen. I think that's pretty cool. That's the story. And if you ever want to sing again on the YouTube channel here about your various ads that you've done, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
But I appreciate it. And so hang
No
tight.
extra charge for that, by the way.
Don't hang up yet. I'm going to stop recording. All right.